Welcome to today's dream, tomorrow's reality. And I'm super excited to have Andrew here with me today,
Yay.
as he's been on the podcast before. And I did a little outreach not too long ago about different things that are going on in my world, and we reconnected. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him for just a moment and let him just tell us a little bit about who he is for those people that have not watched the previous podcast. And I know you're wanting to explore a little bit more of what you do in this one.
Hmm.
So I'm really excited to hear about
Cool.
what all that is.
Well, thank you so much, Vicky, for having me on your show. It was great. We had a great chat last time. My name is Andy. I call myself a spiritual business coach, meaning I integrate spirituality, personal development, heart-based thinking, into business. So I primarily work with small business owners. My clients are like, again, primarily $1 to $10 million. Some are bigger, some are smaller, but that range. Contractors, doctors, software creators, all sorts of people, manufacturers, real estate people. It runs the gamut. But it's people who want to not just make money, which is, of course, very important, but also who feel that, they want to create a business with purpose, add value to the world, right? Or people who have been involved in business a long time, they're very successful, and they don't know how to pivot their business um, into being more purposeful, right?
Hmm.
Adding more value. So with that in mind, because I started slowly shifting my clients over, I started a nonprofit called Spirituality in Business Institute. You can take a look at spiritualbiz.org, and it's a real 501(c)(3) nonprofit. And through there, I'm able to spread the message a little bit more to folks who are want to come out of the closet, so to speak, about being spiritual. And spiritual doesn't mean believing in a certain type of God or even believing in God. I believe that if as long as you believe, and I have clients who are agnostic, or atheist, but they believe that we're all connected. That's what
Hmm.
spirituality is. Whether you
Right.
believe that's through God or your soul, I believe there's a soul and there's God, but some people don't. That's okay as long as they're seeing that we're all connected, right? Whether through nature or through, right? Everybody's connected. We see how a war in one place can affect us here. And the butterfly effect, right? You've heard of
Hmm.
that,
Yeah.
but we're all connected on a human level. And so I have a lot of great clients who maybe don't believe in God. But they're making a difference in the world. That's what I mean by spirituality. There's some sort of internal spirit that connects us. So that's what I've been doing. I've also been doing a lot of social media and going out there and speaking and traveling and going on podcasts and talking about this, that it's the universe, the world is ready for a change, and it's ready for you. If you're listening to this, you're needed. Everybody has something to give to make the world a better place. We see what's happening in the world. It doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum
Right.
you're
Yep.
on, or it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Or right? We all see
Hmm.
this problem, especially in this country, right? We're so divided. We're not talking to each other. Everybody's social media. It's business people who can make great and quick changes. We see it's very difficult for the government to make changes. They're too very big. It's not their fault. It's a huge ship. Entrepreneurs, people involved in business, especially if you're starting a business, if you're a founder, an entrepreneur, you can pivot very quickly. And today, with the power of social media, and it's so easy to do marketing today. Vicky and I remember a time when the fax machine was the biggest piece of technology we had, right? That was
Hmm.
when I started out in consulting, I had a phone. I worked from home. Even 30 years ago, I worked from home. I had a phone and a fax machine. My that was my technology. That's it. I had a computer. I had an Apple, but it was not. Yeah. After a while, it did connect. I had a modem.
Yeah, it's
And the
it's funny when
18
you think
people.
about how it's
Yeah,
really, when you look at it, it hadn't been that long ago that it was that
that's right.
antiquated, really.
Yeah. So today, because we can connect, it's so easy to connect and so affordable, we can change the world. And my mission is to inspire people to change the world, because if you're waiting for somebody else to do it, it's not going to happen. You need to start changing the world, and you start first by changing yourself, which I like to talk about a little bit today. Um, and as you change yourself and you're an example of change and you're adding value somehow, this will affect people. That's how it starts, a little bit at a time. We can't save everybody. We can certainly save ourselves, whatever that means, and live a more fulfilling life. And then also we can create products or add services to the world that make people's lives better.
Yeah.
Um, and my background is I was very fortunate. When I was very young. I was like 21. I found the path of Kabbalah, which is a mystical practice. Its origins is in Judaism, but Christians have studied it, Muslims have studied it. It has a lot of connections to the Asian spiritual practices as well. So it's kind of like a unifying um, mysticism, technology, theology, whatever you want to call it, but it's very practical for me. It's very, very practical thing. And that helped me. That's what I use, because there's 3,000 years of writing on the Kabbalah. And because it's not religious, it's more the practical aspects of spirituality. It's very practical and usable for people. Um, and they can change their life with it, as I have and my clients have, and I know a lot of people who study Kabbalah. Um, and it kind of unifies all these disparate. What I love about it, it unifies all of these disparate spiritualities, and everybody says, "My God is right," or "My God is right," and religion's right. The biggest wars, unfortunately, have been fought by religions. This is something that predates religion. It's 3,000 years old before there was any of the modern religions, even Judaism. There was no Christianity, no Islam, no Buddhism. It predates that.
For a lot of people, it's hard to even fathom that it hasn't always been the way that it is right now, you know,
Yeah.
that there was something that came before that. And, I've looked at a lot of the different things. I did a look at some of the Kabbalah stuff after you and I had
Hmm.
talked last time. And so it's very interesting to see how there was something there before. You,
Yup.
you
There
know?
are books there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the book, Abraham the Patriarch, right? Everybody knows Abraham. He's very famous. He doesn't need an intro. He wrote a book 400 years before the Bible called the Sefer Yetzirah that explains in his science, basically, it explains how the universe works. So yes, there was all these written things and bodies of knowledge before that. A lot of it was passed, from master to student, right?
Mm-hmm.
Through an apprenticeship, you have to earn it, and you learned it. And it was, there were schools. There were usually called mystery schools, or I don't know what that's the best term that I have for that. Mystery schools where people learned all these incredible secrets, and there were some mystery schools in Greece, in ancient Judea, all over the place, where people learned from all these like people like Abraham, but also from people like Pythagoras and all these kind of folks. They learned things, and the university is actually quite a new uh, um, invention. Now we go to school and universities to study, but it used to be through master to student. And that's why a lot of it also got, because it was verbally, orally transmitted, except for a few books that survive, um, things got molded into something else. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that got molded into is religion. All these
Right.
teachings got molded into certain sets of practices. Nothing wrong with religion, but then everybody has their own religion. The Jews and the Christians, right? Within Judaism, there's different sects. Within Christianity, there's different sects, and so on and so forth, right? So it got molded into these rules. And Kabbalah, what it tries to do is help people understand the why behind the rules. Why were these rules created? But it's not about the rules. I wish there were seven rules I could follow, and everything will be great and I'll be good as a God. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's more an internal process, which I can talk about, and I give you some practical things on what the ancient Kabbalists say, that's by the way, that all spiritual teachers agree on. That's what I love about it. Kabbalah, because it's a root, it goes way back. It's something that all spiritual gurus and rabbis and saints can agree on.
Hmm.
So, for instance, um, 95%, and I'm speaking here to spiritual people believe in God, but we all believe we have a soul, right?
Hmm.
There's a soul, and it doesn't matter whether you're Muslim or Christian or Jewish or whatever. I believe we have a soul, and all mystical authorities agree that we all have a soul, that what you see here as Andy or as Vicky, that's a small part of us. That's the 1%. That's the physical body. But inside us, there's something that's somehow connected to God. So, or the creator, or whatever you want to call that being. Um, but it's separate from the creator. So how could that be? So the first thing, and some people may know this analogy, the first thing that Kabbalah explains is that um, the relationship between your soul and the creator is that imagine the creator, the light force, whatever you want to call it, being this huge mountain, and we're a
Hmm.
rock that was hewn from that mountain, right? So it was taken away. That little pebble is our soul. It's made of the same stuff as the mountain, which is the creator, but it's separated from it, but it's the same.
Hmm.
That's the way to think about it. So we do have that soul inside us, and that soul, and so the question we have to understand, because if we are part of the creator ultimately, and this creator is this infinite being, right, that has all powerful, all love, why do we have problems?
Yeah.
How could it be? How could it be that we have problems if we have a soul and we're connected to God? Actually, 100% of the time, we're actually still connected soul. So those are some of the questions that uh, I don't say Kabbalah wrestles with, but answered and is answered over. There's thousands of years of answers to this. So, one of the things we have to understand is that when this universe, this physical universe, was created, um, we chose it. Now, I don't want to go into the history of why like the prehistory of why this universe was created, but it was created as a playground for us to become like the creator,
Hmm.
basically, to get all the power, get everything we want. Um, and so to give us something to, because if we got everything for free, that's actually the biggest curse, right? When somebody
Right.
gets everything for free, people struggle today. I know starting businesses, they have a hard time, right? They have to go through a challenge, right? Finding clients, building their business, finding staff, all these things I work with my clients. Um, it's a struggle. Well, if you got it for free, you'd very quickly get bored of it.
Yeah. And
And
not
that's the
appreciate
problem.
it either.
Not appreciated, right?
Right.
If I gave you a tennis racket that you could win any tennis match you ever played. You'd in the beginning it'd be fun. You'd win
Hmm.
a lot of Wimbledons and US Opens, but after a while you'd be like, what's the point?
Right.
So what Kabbalah explains is that the struggle is the point. That's the fun part.
Hmm.
That's actually the struggle in life is where the light is where your soul is. Now, what happened when the universe was created is that something called an adversary was created. It's an ancient term word. I don't know if you read this when you're reading Kabbalah. It's called Satan. Satan is
Okay.
not a guy with a pitchfork and that we see in movies. Satan is an ancient Aramaic word that means adversary. That's all it means.
Hmm.
Um, and this adversary is there. It's a consciousness. And this adversary is there to put doubt into our life, to make it, doubt ourselves, doubt our path, doubt that we even have a soul or if there's a God or the creator. Um, it's our tennis partner. And that tennis partner is always a little bit better than us, right? So we can advance in life. And it's a very practical thing because it's not somebody there to punish you. It's not evil. Satan, that was something that was created by religionists to scare us
Yeah.
and to get
In the
them
place.
into place and to
Yeah.
give them all our money.
Yeah.
Right? You know, be poor. It's God loves the poor. However, it's every religion has it,
Yeah. Yeah.
except me as the religious leader. I who have
Yeah.
diamond
Yeah.
encrusted, jewels and everything. Um, so that was created. That's what I was saying. This all the stuff was created later by religionists or people who wanted to take power. But the root of this is very beautiful. We have this conscious opponent inside us, that's there to challenge us, right? It's there to make us react to people when they push our buttons, right? It pushes our, like, it's not that somebody pushes our button, it's that we react to it. We get upset, we get
We
sad,
have a
or we
trigger.
get angry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are created, and Satan, or the adversary, or the opponent, as I like to call it, not just me, it's from other Kabbalists have called it. I didn't make that up. But the opponent is there to push you, to trigger you, right? Like in a tennis match. You want to play with somebody a little bit better than you
Mm-hmm.
so that you can improve.
Right.
And
Well,
this
you know,
adversary,
something
please.
that's coming up for me as you're talking about this, because it's interesting because I was having a conversation with myself this morning, about, a lot of people want to not have any challenges and they don't want to have any, anxiety about how to do something. They would just want to know. And we all fall into that sometimes. But I was thinking this morning about, the pearls. It's created from this speck of sand or some kind of parasite in the
Mhm.
oyster, and the only way it can't get it out, so the only thing it can do is start surrounding it with this substance, which over time creates these beautiful pearls. And without that problem that it's trying to solve, we wouldn't have that. And there's
That's
so
right.
many things to me that I think about in life. There's everything that is around us that's been invented came from somebody having some kind of dilemma that they were trying to
Yep.
solve.
And
And
probably, yep.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Edison, right? He tried 10,000 light bulbs before he came up with the right one.
right, right.
I don't know if he's like, he could have quit after 600 and nobody
Yeah,
would have faulted him.
yeah,
So he missed probably a lot of dinners with his wife and his kids, but he
yeah.
kept going. Yeah, so that's right. And this is explained already 3,000 years ago in the book of Sefer Yetzirah, which is a book written by Abraham the patriarch. So life isn't whatever you're trying to build, whatever you're trying to overcome. The first thing we have to recognize is that, first of all, the grass is not greener. Everybody has problems that are equal and a little bit more than what they can handle, because the adversary is a conscious thing. It's for lack of a better word, an angel, right?
Hmm.
But an angel that's sent to help, right? That's one way of looking at it, right? Um, but it's a consciousness that's there to push you a little bit. So everybody in the world, and we know this, right? Because we work with people, has
Hmm.
problems, but everybody's problems are different
Right,
because you're getting the perfect problems to help you get to your next level. So
right,
for me in business, I see, right? I I work maybe 30%, 40% on creating systems, helping clients create systems and operations manuals and all this kind of stuff to build their business. But the other 60 to 70% of it is the internal work they need to do in leadership, in ownership of their path, right? And believing they can build, let's say, $1 million business, and then believing they can build a $10 million business. It's all internal work. And all along the way, if it would, there's what I like to call it WSTN, Satan Radio, all day, all night. It's loud. WSTN transmits this broadcast of negative thoughts. And this is the beautiful thing. We have to know that even our negative thoughts are not things we created. It was stuff that's being sent to us that we're picking up on. And there's also another radio station called WLIT, Light, which is light radio. That's from your soul. Now, your soul, and if we go into our heart, we relax, right? We breathe, we're having a problem. If we pause for a moment, we know the right thing to do. But what happens is that, right, we react. We
Hmm.
want to solve it right now. We want instant gratification. We want to take that Tylenol or that Advil or whatever that means in that situation. So the beautiful way it's set up is that WSTN, Satan radio or adversary radios, is louder. So our first response will always be the bad response.
Right.
So if we calm down a little bit, if we just pause when something happens, when something triggers us, and go into our heart or go into our soul to take a breath, then we can listen to the messages that are also there from WLIT, which is our soul. They're there, um, but we just have to listen a little bit. And the
Right.
beautiful thing about, so that's what I teach, these founders is that, an employee upsets you, you just lost a big client, you're building your business and nothing's working, which is normal. By the way, that's the process.
Yeah.
Calm down. What would your soul tell you to do right now? Would your soul say, or your quit? Of course not. Okay. But Satan will tell you that. Your negative, your reactive consciousness will tell you that.
So it's kind
Quit.
of like that old commercial from years and years ago where it's the dilemma and there's an angel on a shoulder and a devil on the
Yep.
other, which I'm aging myself even talking about that. It's been so long ago.
No, but it's also is in I think they had in a lot of movies and stuff.
Yeah.
That's what it
Yeah.
really is. It's almost like there's these two voices inside us competing, but these two voices are real. They're real conscious, whether you want to call it, it's like from outside of us, inside us, there are these two different voices. Um, and and by just recognizing that, and that's, like my clients when they work, I want them to recognize that, slow down and what is your soul telling you here? And if they're not spiritual, what is your heart telling you here when you're making this decision?
Hmm.
Besides all the stuff, right? You do the work, you create the marketing plan or whatever, right? Or you hire the right people, you have a team, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's the physical work. But then to should I pull the trigger or not? Andy, they asked me, I'm like, I'm a coach, I'm not a consultant, I'm not here to tell you what to do. But what I can help you do is listen to your heart. What
Right.
is your heart telling you to do after you've done all the work of creating this thing? And 100% of the time, if they realize they know the right answer.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of this work is
Hmm.
that it doesn't say don't ignore the negative or not do the work in the physical world. That's important. But to have real long lasting fulfillment, you want to listen to your heart, listen to your soul, you
Yeah.
know, and that will like slow down, pause, and then ask your soul, what would my soul do in this point, in this position? And oftentimes, if you take a few seconds, you'll get an answer.
Right. One of the things that I find a lot of people get kind of stuck there too, because um, one of the things that one of the phrases that I love is you can't outperform the belief of who you are. And so a lot of people, get into the space, and one of the reasons why they ask, what should I do, is because they're coming from a belief of I'm not good enough, I don't know how to do this, all those different beliefs. And so they don't trust that inner voice because they think it is supporting that, which a lot of times it is, until we start working with them and help them to see so they can understand that voice that's coming in from inside, the good voice that is helping to propel them to where they want to go, that they have to work on, like you said, they have to work on this, who they are and how they're showing up in the world and how they think about the world is important too. So to me, it's the people that only talk about the business side of things are leaving so much
That's right.
undone. And because you can have tools out the wazoo and you can have advice out the wazoo. And there's even some people I've seen recently that are really talking about, I'll do it for you. You just pay
Hmm.
me this and I'll do it all for you. And I think, well, that's all in good, well and good as long as you're sitting right there with them for the rest of their lives. They got
Yeah.
to learn, right? That's
Yeah.
that little challenge with the
Yes.
pearl and all the
That's
stuff.
right.
We're working with people to do the what you can give them a fish or you can teach them to fish and they'll eat
Correct.
forever. So we're helping them to discern that inner dialogue, where to
Yeah.
get it, and how to interpret it better and make decisions from that place instead of looking for the external stuff and only looking for tools without
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
the inside.
External. That's right. The external stuff or tools will never solve. It's important to have tools too,
Right.
right? But that's 1% of it. And that's why I started with, and that's the beauty of Kabbalah. It goes like the root is that we have a soul and it's connected to God or a creator who is, and that's who that's what we need to start connecting to. And again, I apologize for the 5% of people who are atheists, but you can think of your
I
heart or
think
whatever.
they'll be
But
fine.
yeah, I think they'll make it. But 95% believe in God. Well, then know that if there is a God and God is good and your soul is connected to God, then you have this godlike power inside you. And that's how I started with that. However, to make life more fun, more challenging, and more interesting, that voice that's from God, that's from your soul, is just quieter
Hmm.
because it was easy. If you got all the answers again, if you win, if I gave you the tennis racket, the magic tennis racket that wins every game, you're going to be bored with life. That's actually hell. Hell is
Hmm.
not a place where you burn, forever. It's getting everything you want without earning it and
Yeah.
feeling the emptiness from that. That's a hell. And we see this in there's a great movie I may have mentioned last time because um, Born Rich. Do you ever hear of this movie, Born Rich?
I
It's an
think
amazing
so.
documentary.
Tell me a little bit about
It's
it because I'm not sure. The
I
name
okay.
sounds very familiar.
So it's on, I think you can watch it free on YouTube. It's available. So amazing movie, one about how to raise your children, but also about what it means when you get everything for free. So Born Rich is a movie, is a documentary, one of the like the great grandson of Johnson and Johnson, the company.
Hmm.
He's already like fourth generation. He does a documentary about all his friends, all his super, super, super rich friends. Like he's like a Johnson of Johnson and Johnson. So
Hmm.
he gets multi-million dollars worth of just trust fund every year. He doesn't never have to work for a day in his life. And not only that, his dad doesn't have to work either. Like his dad, he's doing a documentary, and his dad is just like a painter. Like he does his little paintings. He has nothing to do. But he does this documentary where he interviews and talks to all his other friends, these super, super uber wealthy kids in their 20s, late teens, early 20s. And one kid, and these are all people with trust funds, a lot of money. Some of them are like, he's connected. He meets in the Hamptons with these people who are like, lords from England or sons or daughters of lords, all these kind of super, super rich people, Carnegies and one kid is a bigger loser than the next. You wouldn't want to be friends with these kids. And you see because they have nothing to live for except partying, right? Champagne, like there's not much in life because they have nothing to struggle for. And
Hmm.
it's really a hell they're living in. And it's interesting. He interviews one of his friends who talks about an experience he had in college. He's one of the sons of some big oil company, right? He's in that lineage. So his family owns oil companies. And he tells a story of one summer he went to work on an oil rig for the summer as like what do they call those guys? It's a name for them. They work on oil rigs, but it was like a really hard experience. He went to work on an oil rig all summer, and he was covered in oil and greasy, um, and he said, that was the best experience of my life. That's when I had the most fun. And it's so profound because this kid who has millions of dollars coming to him every year, the most satisfying thing he ever did in his life is work on an oil rig for
Yeah.
the summer. So we have our own oil rig to work on. Your life, your business, it's going to be messy. You're going to be covered in oil, right? Metaphorically speaking, and it'll be tough. That's our life. But consider it a blessing, the toughness of life.
Hmm.
Because if you didn't have it, see this movie, you'll be shocked at these kids. Like they have nothing because they have everything.
Yeah.
Um, and it's also, it taught me so much about how to raise my children, to not give them everything, because that's the best way to ruin them is to give them everything. Of course, I want to support them. Of course, I'm saving money for them for college and things like that. But if they don't do things by themselves and learn how to do that, if I give them handouts, they're just going to be miserable and they're going to hate me,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, so anyways, that's a great movie to see. It wasn't meant to be a spiritual movie, but I
Well, I wrote
found
it down,
it
so I'll make sure that
very
I
spiritual.
check it out.
Very spiritual movie. Because we all, right? Who, if somebody I told you, hey, Vicky, what if I gave you a $2 million trust fund every year? You got 2 million bucks every year. Be like, oh my God, all my problems are solved. It sounds amazing until you have it. And there's a perfect opportunity to see how people act who have it.
Yeah.
It's a funny, so I'll tell you a very funny part of the movie. So his dad, this guy's making a documentary. His dad is already also, he's like a grandson of the Johnsons, and he never had to work a day in his life. So he's like a painter. And the impetus for the documentary is that the son goes to his dad and asks him, what should I do with my life? And the guy says it all seriousness. He says, and there's a name for it. I forgot. He's like, I think you should be a map collector. There's a name for it. Somebody
Yeah.
collects maps. And this son's like, really? You're serious? And he's saying it with a whole straight face. So even this guy, he's like clueless. His dad, he goes to his dad for advice. Dad's like, you should be a map collector. Crazy. I guess he could be a map collector because he has all his money. He can do whatever he wants. But,
Yeah.
it's just, I thought that was hilarious. Like the worst guy to go for advice is this super wealthy billionaire,
Right.
because he never had to
He could
earn
tell
a
you how to
dollar.
invest, but not really how
Not,
to live
not
your life.
even. Probably not even because he didn't make the money. It's
That's
just a
true.
trust fund. He
That's
didn't
true.
he didn't do anything. No, he's a painter. And you see his paint, he just paints all day. That's his
Yeah.
thing. He doesn't add any value to society. So, and that leads me to the second part is that the way to um so how do we, because you asked that question, right? People don't trust themselves, right? People don't trust this voice. So Kabbalah has an answer for that too. And that's why I started my nonprofit, is that the way to um, turn down the volume of the adversary or WSTN and turn up the volume of WLIT is to be like the creator, be your light, add value. So whatever business you find yourself in, whatever position you find yourself in, whether business or personal, how can you add value to this situation? Like God would if God was there. But God is there because God is expressing itself through you, through your soul. So that's the way, and that's the practice. And that's how people have coaches like you and I, right? To help them recognize that this is the path towards expressing your soul and feeling fulfilled. If you can add, and you can do it in very simple ways, just by being happy at work. I have a song list I play in the morning.
Hmm.
I've always, my favorite songs is to get pumped up. So when I'm on a call with people, I'm happy and excited. Sometimes that's all people need. Or whatever it is, your situation you find yourself in. So no matter what business you're in, look, you can be you could be a cobbler, you could have a shoe store or something. Oh, I'm selling shoes. Or you could be like, oh my God, I'm selling shoes.
Yeah.
I'm helping people walk better and run. And wow, that's spiritual work. Being spiritual doesn't mean being a guru and being I don't know, Tony Robbins or a guy, somebody and speaking to millions of people, whatever, or a rabbi or a priest or whatever. Being spiritual means adding value to other people's lives. And you can
Hmm.
start today wherever you are, adding value to people's lives. So, there's a famous story. There is a story of a Kabbalist who, through divine inspiration, saw that this guy was this guy was like the most spiritual person of the generation. And he wanted to see who this guy is. So he took all his students. This was back in Eastern Europe hundreds of years ago. He went to visit this guy and he was just a cobbler. That's how I brought up the shoe story.
Hmm.
And he just made shoes, right? Back when there were cobblers. I think there's still one or two left. So he cobbled. all day long. And he seemed okay. And then people didn't understand, why is this guy such on a high level, spiritual level? Um, and everyone was confused. They went to him, well, listen, our teacher, our wise teacher who has vision, saw you as this, the most elevated of our generation. uh, what do you do? Because I just see you making shoes. He's like, that's interesting. Well, when I make shoes, I put all my heart and soul into it. And when I'm making the shoe, I imagine the person being so happy and fulfilled while wearing these shoes. And so all his consciousness, he
Mm-hmm.
was doing the same as every other cobbler, but in his mind, he was injecting each shoe and each lace of and excitement. And so that when people wore his shoes, they changed and they felt amazing. And they
Yeah.
didn't know why that happened. So he changed many, many, infinite amount of life, however many clients he had or customers he had, right? Everybody came to him, left feeling great, right? So that sounds like a spiritual thought. That can't be. How could that be? Well, we give you an example. We know we felt this too, right? When we go into somebody's home and they made a meal for us and they put a lot of love into it. We can feel that, can't we?
Mm-hmm.
We're having a great meal with people who really loved creating that meal. We're eating it, and there's more going on than the food. So
Right.
this whole thing of energy transfer and injecting things with love and value is a very practical thing. You can test it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And another example I give people, we can tell if you're calling on the phone, right? If you're cold calling, if you're in business, if you're calm, first of all, if you're calm, if you learn to balance your emotions and then you smile, people can feel it,
Mm-hmm. They can hear it in your
right?
voice almost.
Yes, they can feel the love in your voice and you'll sell more. I mean, it's very practical.
Mm-hmm.
You will sell more of whatever you're selling instead of, hi, this is Joe from XYZ company. I'm here to call you about. No, the love people can feel. So love is a currency. Your heart, your value add is a real currency you can add to whatever you're doing to change people's lives. The result will be that the more you do it, the more you will be able to listen to your soul and know the soul's voice and be able to take the directives of your soul, not the adversary, which
Right.
unfortunately we do usually. Does
So
that
I
make
got
sense?
a,
Or is that, I don't
it
think that's
does,
too
it
esoteric,
does.
right?
I always love talking to you about all this stuff. But I want to ask, you had mentioned some practical things, and so I'd kind of like to ask you a couple of little things that
Please.
you might could help our listeners with. Let's just say somebody that's listening right now is just becoming an entrepreneur. They've just
Mhm.
decided that this is my path. I'm not really sure, exactly what that looks like, but I know this is what I want to do. And maybe they have this pie in the sky kind of feel, they're going to change the world. And maybe some of them are just sitting there saying, I just want to make some extra money, so I can help my family more. We can go on vacation. There'll be all different reasons, but what would you, from what you do with your clients now and what we just talked about, what would be maybe one or two things that you would tell them right off?
Sure.
This, I know these things need to be paid attention to, not
Right.
necessarily fixed, but
Great
paid
question.
attention to.
Right. Very practical things. So the first thing is that, first of all, you have to, and I do this to all my clients when I start with them, and I remind them of this at least once a year or more, is that you have to find a process you can find online or work with somebody to find your values, your true values. I have my values right up on my wall, so I never forget them. You have to work through a process to figure out your values. So there's great assessments and stuff online, and I have some processes that I work with clients to help them find their values. I think one of my I have two free playbooks on
Mm-hmm.
my. I think one of them has it on my website. I have two free playbooks you can download. Um, they may not be free now. If somebody listens to this, I'll send them a code. They can get it for free.
Okay.
But there's a process in there. But you can find other processes. So that's how I'd start with. Find out what your values are, because if you're not connected to your values, who you are, okay, you won't be authentic. It'll feel fake no matter what you
And you'll get sidetracked
say.
drastically.
And you won't have fun doing what you're doing.
Right.
So, if you're like, one of my values is actually independence and rebellion. Those are two of my values. So when I figured, once I figured that out, I know that I really can't work for, I mean, I can as a consultant or a coach, but I'm a very bad employee. Okay. Like, I'm a bad employee. I don't follow directions. I have too many ideas, as you can see. I can't shut up, right? So I have too many ideas. And I look at my books, I've read a million things. But, and I've tried to be an employee a few times, and it's never really worked out. It doesn't end well for me. And that's because that's not my value. My value, if your value is independence and rebellion, two of your values, it's going to be very hard for you to hold a job.
Yeah.
Right. So I had to choose the entrepreneurial path and the path of coaching and consulting, doing my own thing, because that's what I value that. And I value that in other people. I appreciate people who are rebels or who are independent. They're my people. So that's so important to figure this out. Another one is creativity. So I'm infinitely creative. I'm writing a book now. I'm doing all sorts of things, creative things, coming up with ideas. That's why I like being a consultant, besides being a coach, because I can come up with creative things. Even if people paid me $1 million a year. I used to live in New York for 25 years, and sometimes I think, oh man, I should have just gone into finance. I know a lot of people, they're making like $20 million a year, and they're working for these Wall Street firms. It wouldn't have been me. I
Yeah.
would have fallen, unless maybe I was in a position where I had a lot of creative control. But in the beginning, you don't. And these big firms, now some people are very good at that, following standard operating procedures and working within the system. And those are the people who thrive on Wall Street,
Hmm.
right? And then they can go into venture capital or private equity and be creative in other ways. But even if you give me $1 million a year to be an employee for you and you tell me what to do, I'm going to fail. Even if I'm making $1 million a year, because I'll, I, I won't be expressing my soul. So
Right.
the easiest way, the clue to know what your soul wants to express, figure out what your values are. That would be the first thing. The second thing, and I try to train my client, it's a process. I'm also going through this, all the time, is learn how to balance your emotions, whether you do it through hypnotherapy, emotional releasing, therapy, whatever you do. You should find a routine where you balance your emotions, because you can't make good decisions if you're if you're not in equilibrium. So whatever it is you do, I studied something called focusing, and emotional releasing, the Sedona method, different sort of techniques I
Hmm.
put together. But I have something every morning, 10 minutes I do, 5 minutes I do before calls, couple minutes to balance my emotions. Everything else will be easier to do, including not reacting to WSTN, not letting because those messages will try to get you reactive. So it's a practice. The more we learn how to balance our emotions, the easier it'll be next time to do it, and the faster we'll get there. So today, after doing emotional releasing and emotional balancing techniques and practicing them for 25 years, today, in 1 minute, I can rebalance myself,
Right.
go to like a neutral state, like relax, let go of a sadness or anger or whatever the negative emotion is that I've been triggered with. Not always, right?
Well, nobody's
I have three,
perfect.
I have three teenagers. They're my best workshop. Um, Teenagers know how to exactly get
Which
you.
buttons to push, that's for sure.
So they're also sent by God to test me and help me grow.
Well, I can
So
just tell you a little bit when they get where they're not teenagers anymore, they still do
you still do a thing, yeah, right. So yeah, that's what kids are there for,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But we do it to our parents, and we did it to our
yes.
parents too. So when you're starting as an entrepreneur, know that your values and learning how to balance your emotions are going to help you so much create whatever it is you want to create. Because even if you have the best idea in the world, if you're operating in a place of stress, or let's say you have a, depression or sadness or anger, whatever it is, you're not going to do your best work. So the practical stuff, there's books, right? There's business courses, entrepreneurship. There's a million things out there. Udemy, you can go on Udemy and there's a million incredible uh, courses on how to start any sort of business you want, and you can get them for $19.95. Today we have access to, and of course, ChatGPT can give you a whole plan. But if you're doing it just to make money and you're also upset all the time, you're not going to get anywhere. So
Right.
again, that's why, people come to me for business coaching. Andy, I want you to help me build my business. I'm like, good. Okay, let's work on your emotions first, right? We work on all these other things. I ask them, how are you feeling? How are your relationships with your family, with yourself? All these things matter. If you're upset, and so I'll give you a very practical example. I had a logistics company. They had about 20, 25 salespeople. And I taught them how to do emotional releasing before their sales calls. And they agreed to do this. It was like a 5-minute process. They hired me to do sales reengineering and help their sales, boost their sales. But I was like, you know how to sell your stuff the best. So I saw there were other issues. And when I analyzed the company, I saw that very, very few people had any sort of like leadership work or internal work they've done on themselves. So, anyways, I developed this little 5-minute thing. We had like a workshop first, a few hours to explain it and the theory and the science behind it. And then I taught them this little 5-minute thing. I said, before you get on a sprint, their sprints were like cold calls to find new accounts. Do this 5-minute exercise. And they started doing it. I think most of us are doing it. We looked at like 3 months later, the number of new accounts they had closed, and it had grown by a third,
Mm-hmm.
doing nothing else. Everybody overall, the company, the salespeople increased sales by a third, which is huge in a
Mm-hmm.
few months, just relaxing before they got on the phone. That's all they did. I didn't give them any new scripts. Oh, of course, we worked on something, but it doesn't matter what the script is or
Right.
anything like that. It's about your mental state. So it's a very practical thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Um, and so that just give you something I saw, and I've done this many times with different organizations, but man, that stuff works. Or I went into a law firm, lawyers, right? You could just imagine. And one of the things we learned is, and the CEO um, knew that, they had issues. They wanted to get better. They wanted to grow as leaders, everybody in the company. So the CEO was pretty enlightened. Um, a female CEO, by the way, she was great. Women are leading the charge for emotional transformation in this
That's
world,
true.
right?
Yes.
It's
Uh-huh.
crazy, right? And by the way, it says in the Zohar, which is ancient text of the Kabbalah, that salvation will come through women,
Mm.
and we see it. It's so true, right? But anyways, so she brought me in, and we did all these exercises to bring them together, like learning how to smile. Yeah, like they had these bad interaction with customers. Like when they come in, I taught them like first thing you do, you get up, you say hello, be welcoming, smile, say hello. And we did this practice where I told them just go around for one day, smiling at everybody at the office and saying hello and how are you, even if you have to fake it, right? Just do it. And they reported back it was like amazing. People started cracking up and like, oh, that's so great. You know, it was the energy changed in the room. And I said, this is
Mm-hmm.
what you need to do with your clients too. When somebody comes in, right? There's a typical office. Nobody says hello, law firm, like terrible. Things are slowly changing, but lawyers can be very tough and mean and without any sort of emotional intelligence. And so I've taught them just to do these little things, be more welcoming, be more gracious, be smiley.
Mm-hmm.
And it changed their everything. And it was interesting. The one woman, because there's a lot of women in almost all, it was a women-led, it was a there was just a few guys in this whole company. But I'm this one woman who's an associate, um, an attorney. She wasn't taking to this training, and I would come in every month and do a different training, and everybody else was changing and seeing the effects of this. She, after about 3, 4 months, she took another job. So it was interesting that once people start around you,
She wasn't happy.
she wasn't happy. It
Yeah.
wasn't her place because she wanted to be an old, stodgy, lawyer.
Yeah.
I know better. And she left. She didn't get fired. She just left. So when you change your environment, when you start being happier and being more emotionally balanced, right?
Mm-hmm.
The people around you will change
Yeah.
and your environment will change. And people some who don't like it will leave your life.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to change your life. Just, so these are just a couple examples of things that are very easy to do. Frankly, teaching people how to smile I get paid a lot of money for it, but that's all you need to do. They paid me a lot of money and don't tell anybody. That's what I teach, but
Your secret's
it,
safe right here.
yeah, it's just all over the internet now, right? But, it was a very practical thing, very simple thing. So that's what that was just two examples of the stuff working in practice. That's what I would tell people. That's a long answer to your short question, but basically start internally, connect your soul, balance your emotions, know what your values are. Because from your values, you will know what your soul is here to express.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny. Um, a lot of times people are expecting something different, right? And when I first started coaching, I was a health coach. I became a health coach. And the first thing that we did with all of our clients was we had them declutter their home.
Great.
And it was like, what do you mean I have to declutter my home? I want to lose some weight. I want to be healthier. Well,
Mm,
this is where we start. Because a cluttered
smart.
mind is reflective in your space until you can get that clutter out of your mind. You got to move it from here.
That's
And
beautiful.
so it was a very valuable thing. And just from that one thing, I learned a lot about how we uh, not attack, but we address things that we're trying to change within us. And sometimes we have to affect some things outside of us to help us to do all these changes. And so
Yeah.
and it's kind of like what is it, the chicken or the egg? It's like, did I change and then the outside change, or did I change the outside and then the inside change? It's just kind of, it goes together.
Yeah. Well, I think we're talking about everything is holistic, right? Now you're
Mm-hmm.
coaching, health coaching, everything affects everything else.
Right.
So it's holistic. Your emotions, the way you treat your family, the way you treat your health, it affects everything. At this other company, um, young guy, he must have been 38 years old. He had like a massive coronary, like terrible thing. He was so stressed out. Um, but he was very successful. He was like the number 2 salesperson in this company. He's super successful, beautiful BMW, everything you could think of. But he wasn't taking care of his emotions. And he was always stressed out. So at 38, he had like this massive heart attack. Like he almost died. He was in the hospital in bed rest for 6 months. Young guy. So, you think, oh, it's all about making money or helping my team. No, you gotta also take care of your health. This guy didn't exercise. He smoked cigarettes. He was always like very high pressure salesperson, like high, go, go, go.
Yeah.
Almost killed him. So it's all related. So yes, one of the best things you can do is, during the day, if you have a meeting that's virtual, right? It's on the phone, go for a walk. People say, oh, I don't have time, I don't have time to exercise. Well, you don't, if you have meetings, some of them you could just put an earbud in and go outside and walk, especially now the weather's getting better. Most places you can go out and walk. Here in Florida, actually, it's like 96 degrees now every day. Nevertheless, you can take a 10-minute walk even in 96 degrees. So you can, and so as a business coach, I think I help people build businesses. I advise them to do these sort of things too, because I know it'll help them make more money. If
Mm-hmm.
they're also a little bit healthier, right? They go for a
Oh
walk. I
yeah.
had
And
one
they'll be able
company.
to enjoy that money.
Correct. When they're
Yes.
later in life. That's right. I got this one company to they instituted it as a policy. As many and primarily the staff meetings. They had tons of staff meetings. All the staff meetings are going to do walking meetings. So everybody would go outside and do the meetings while they're walking. And, they can take notes, and people loved it,
Hmm.
and except maybe if you can't walk right, you're disabled. That's one thing. But everybody was good enough to walk there, so everybody walked. And so we built in this emotional, physical exercise, right? That helps everything, right? Helps your physical and helps your emotions too.
Right.
And then you do better, and then you're more productive,
Yeah. I
and
get
then you
some of
come
my
home.
best ideas when I'm out walking my dog.
Yeah,
So I keep my
that's
phone with me so I can dictate into my phone as things come
oh,
to me
that's smart.
because every time in the beginning I would think, oh, that's such a good idea. I got to remember that. I'll
How
remember
you
that. And when I
remember?
get back to the house, it's like, what was it?
Forget
So
it, because
I
ideas
learned,
come
I
in.
got my phone, I'm doing the dictating. And so
That's
people see
beautiful.
me walking a lot of times talking into my phone.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So that's what is just some of the things. I mean, I would tell people to work as you can see, all this stuff is internal work. You got to start
Yeah.
with the internal stuff, and part of that is your physical health as well.
Yeah. Can I
And
share
by the
something
way,
with you?
pardon,
Can I share something with you?
please.
Well, I used to have a really big block on being an entrepreneur, even though I was one. And part of it was because I had a person that was in my life that was a millionaire. It was actually an uncle, and he worked all the time, and he
Mm,
loved it, right? He when he wasn't at work, he was still talking about work, and he was, he traveled, but it was usually about work. And so I found myself saying, wow, if that's how you have to be successful, that I don't want that. I want to be able to relax with my kids. I want to be able to go out and walk. I want to be able to travel and just turn
yeah.
everything off, not have to just be there for business. And I had all these desires that went totally against the things that he did, but he loved them. And he's deceased now. I really wish sometimes that I could ask him, do you really love doing this, or do you just feel compelled to keep doing this?
Mm.
Um,
And so you kind of sabotage yourself too, because I
yeah,
don't want that. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so I spent a lot of time struggling
Hmm.
because I wanted to be successful, but then I didn't at the same time. I didn't want the thing that I saw being my life, you know?
Yeah. Because you were
So
self-sabotaging yourself
yeah.
without knowing it, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
like we don't say, well, I don't want that life, so let me go ahead and just plummet everything over here. It doesn't, it wasn't even on a conscious level. And for the
Mm.
longest time, I couldn't figure out what was my block, what was my mental thing that was keeping me stuck in this one place. And then when I uncovered it, it was like, oh,
Oh,
I
nice.
see that. So I help people with that, and I'm pretty sure you help people too, because most of the time it's like, what's that thing? You can't find a solution uh, in the way you were inside the problem. I think that's it.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
it's like
Something like that.
we
Yeah.
can't see what we're doing from in here. We need somebody on the
That's
outside
right. It's like the
to
worm
see
in the
us.
apple
Yeah,
is an
yeah,
analogy of the worm in the inside the apple thinks there's only darkness, there's no light,
yeah.
because that's all it knows.
Mm-hmm.
If it somehow burrows out, sees, oh my God, there's all this other stuff out here.
Yeah,
So a lot of people are this worm inside an apple.
yeah, yeah.
And they need support. We all need support. I have my own coaches, my own advisors and mentors. We all need that.
Yes,
And by the way, that's what if you had maybe coaching when you were 20 or you're younger, right? Imagine where you'd be today.
I
So
know.
I urge people, not because I'm a coach, but coaching is a very powerful way, whether it's coaching, whether it's health coaching, whatever it is you do, to break out of your limitations, because you can't do it by yourself.
Yeah, I
It's
like
very
to
hard.
say as a coach, it's almost like we have the drone view. The other people are walking through the maze, you
Mm.
know, going down the street and they can't see that the bridge is out. They can't see that there's this tree down. They can't see all these obstacles and they get stuck at them. Whereas as a drone, we could say, okay, you know, to make life a little bit easier and you still learn your thing, but maybe take a right up here instead of
Yep.
doing that. And let's get you where you want to go. So
Yeah,
I kind of, it's a visual for me about being a drone right up
that's
above.
nice. That's very nice. That's very nice. And because we see things as coaches, we
Hmm.
see the potential people, they don't see themselves,
Right.
right? And they'll say something, oh, why'd you say that? That's very interesting. I have a few clients. It's so funny. I was speaking yesterday with a client. He's actually maybe my most successful client on paper, like the
Hmm.
money he's making. And he beats himself up so much. He doesn't have faith in himself. And that's because, we uncovered like his parents really just beat him down when he was young. And so he just never had, even though he built this very successful company. And so he can't enjoy his life. Obviously, slowly changing, but he still has this stuff come up. Like we were looking at something. I reviewed his finance. We did a profit. We looked at his P&L. So we reviewed his last couple of years of P&Ls just to, it's one of the things I do as a business coach. And the funny thing was that he had the best books. He had such great books and such great, and he's gotten leaner. He became leaner as an organization and outsourced more things. He's done so much work to make his company so much more efficient. And yet he beats himself up all the time. He caught himself like going, I told him, because that's my joke. Go, "Man, Jose, his name is Jose. Jose, like, these are incredible financials you have, and you have an incredible company, and you have less people working for you, less headache. You should appreciate yourself, like all the work you've done." He's like, "Yeah, you're right." Like, he still beats himself up, but
Hmm.
I'm there as a coach to help him see how great he is, how much work he's done. Because when we're in it, it's hard. And, work is hard. By the way, your uncle, it is hard, right? But we can also enjoy it. But if we let our programming, affect us and we never change, we never find a way of breaking through, breaking out of that apple, then no matter how much success we have, we won't enjoy it.
Right.
And I think he's enjoying it more. He does like skydiving. He does all sorts of things now. He has a fun life,
Yeah.
but he's so successful. And this is the guy who beats himself up the most.
Yeah.
It's like amazing.
Yep. Definitely. Definitely. So we're getting close to time. We're actually a little over time, but this is always such a good time talking with you. So what I want to do is just ask you if is there one thing that we haven't touched on today that maybe you wanted before we got on here? You said, "Oh, I want to make sure I say this." Is there anything there? Or is there any one last piece of advice that you would like to give everyone who's listening and maybe a little call to action of something that, you just alluded to a few little things. Maybe give them one thing that do this
Well,
today.
yeah, I mean, I would say if you're going to work out, I've pretty much said everything I wanted to say.
Okay.
I put together some notes for today. Um, and you're great. So you get it all out of me. You're really good at that. Um, Yeah, I would say in a practical way, if you want to build a business, know that the building a business, that journey is actually an internal journey. And the more you grow as a human being, and the more you connect to your soul, and the more you want to add value to the world, the faster and more maybe not faster, but the more enjoyable the journey will be, so that it doesn't matter how long the journey takes. And so find ways you can add value, create a company, create a product that makes the world better. And then it's more fun because the journey is tough. You will work sometimes 12, 16 hours, days creating your product, creating your service. So you might as well be acting with on purpose and acting by changing the world. And we need, as I started at the beginning, entrepreneurs are needed in this world. We're going to be the ones that are going to clean the oceans and bring people together and all these kind of things, right?
Yes.
All these problems we see in the world, we're going to be the ones solving it. So don't be afraid to do it. Like, people are ready for entrepreneurs who want to change the world. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
That's kind of the new path I see. So
Hmm.
that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming. Well, thank you so much again, Andrew, for being here today and sharing your gold and your insights. Every time I talk to you, well, this is only the second time, but anyway, I am going to go and look at the Kabbalah again because it's like
Great.
I looked at it then, but it needs a second look.
Yeah, take a look at there's a real good book, The Power of Kabbalah by
Okay.
Berg. That's a real practical book. And TKS, oh my God, I forgot what it's called. The Power of Kabbalah is a great book to start. It's simple, but it's deep.
All
That's a
right.
great book to start
Very
with.
cool. So, all
Cool.
you watching and listening, if you want to go grab that book too, then please do. And I'll put the links in the comments for your website and all that stuff if you'll get that to
Mhm.
me. And then I'll put the info about the book. So, with that said, I hope you have enjoyed this conversation with me and Andrew as much as I have. And if you want to ask him any questions, you can ask them in the comments. And I would love to have you come on
Excellent.
again because this is really such
I had
amazing
fun.
content that it's worth talking about
And people
more.
can find me on LinkedIn. I'm everywhere. So there's
All
only
right.
one Andrew Grinbaum with an I. So easy to find me if you want
All
to talk.
right.
Thanks so much.
Perfect. So thank you
Bye.
guys. Bye.